Mr. Fix-It with the Bed Shed Kilbeggan. Need a new bed or mattress? Our helpful and experienced team will be only too happy to guide you to the best choice for you. Find the Bed Shed on Facebook and Instagram.
Well, that's some intro. Brian Cloonan, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Sally?
I hope you live up to all the hype now, my friend. Great to have you back in studio.
Great to see you back in. It's funny, the last interview with David was all about wild birds. Mm-hmm. And as it was coming in, David said, "Isn't that funny now? That whole interview is about wild birds."
Hey, watch it now.
And guess who's in studio this morning?
I was like, where's this going? David's going to kill you when you walk out of this studio.
He's there making, I can see him through the window he's making cut. Well, I don't know what he's doing, but he's running his finger across his throat.
Yeah, that's career-ending kind of stuff. Well done, Brian. Thanks for that one. We're off to a great start here, listeners. Okay, as I was saying, Brian is with us now right up until the 11 o'clock news. So if you have a question that you'd like answered while we have our Mr. Fix-It with us this morning, do please let us know. 083 30 10 103, or you can call us on 0818 300 103. The first question to get us off the mark this morning is, morning guys, this listener would like to ask Brian, how do you know if a paint is oil-based? I'm thinking gloss, but I'm not sure. Please and thanks.
So, oil-based paints will be normally, traditionally were always used on woodwork and steel, and water-based paints traditionally would have been used on your wall. So emulsion paint, be it, matte emulsion, mid-sheen, back in the day, silk vinyl. Nowadays, probably the most popular one is the scrubbable, washable matte.
Oh, yes.
That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all water-based. And then traditionally anything that went on timber or steel was oil-based. But that's all gone now. So nowadays a lot of people will go for water-based gloss, water-based satin. Now most people, if they're painting doors, if they're painting units, whatever, they'll go for satin rather than gloss. A, because it's in vogue, but B, it's more practical, it sticks better. You get away sometimes, usually without an undercoat if it's a similar colour, and it doesn't show up the bumps, the hollows, the scratches. You don't have to, you get away with more.
The workmanship.
With satin. Yeah, the poor workmanship. Poor personship, I don't know how to say that.
Yeah.
There's probably a politically correct term for that.
Listen, if we're politically correct, wild birds would not have got out there.
Yeah,
don't
I can't
worry about
believe
that
David said that. I really can't. But I personally would always use water-based now, unless it's something that requires a really, really extra tough finish. So, doors, skirting boards, water-based means quick drying, easier to use, easier flowing, and no smell. Now, how do you tell the difference? There's almost no smell from water-based. Oil-based will have a smell. It smells like white spirits because it has white spirits in it. And also, it'll always say on the back of the tin, if you just go to the section that says, wash out brushes. How do you wash out your brushes? Warm, soapy water. Funny enough, it's water-based. Wash it out with white spirits. Or sometimes they don't use the word, they use proprietary cleaner. That means white spirits. So that means oil-based. So it'll always say warm soapy water or warm water if it's water-based.
Okay.
But as I say, if you were going in to buy some, unless you had a strong preference for the oil-based, just go with water-based.
Okay, another question in here. This listener wants to know, what is the best product to use on a water leak stain on ceiling before painting it? Yeah,
so if you paint ordinary paint over a water stain, even no matter how good it is really, it'll bleed through, is what's known. You have the ceiling painted and you're looking up and you're saying, that's a great job. And then you get up the following day and you look at it again and you say, that's a great job. And then the third day you get up and you say, is that brown stain coming back? And by the fourth day, you're in no doubt it's definitely coming back. Okay. So get any of them. To be honest with you, a water stain is not the worst. Of all the stains you could have, a water stain isn't the worst. So I personally go water-based just because you're going to be using a water-based on top of it. Loads of different stain blockers, 1, 2, 3. There's a whole rake of them out there. They'll all work on water stains. I would always give it 2 coats just to be sure, because it's so annoying. When you've painted over everything, you're never quite sure where the stain is. And you think you've gone over it now with the stain block and you repaint everything again and then there's a little bit extra comes out. So do it at the time. You can buy a little half-litre tin for a tenner, I'd say. 2 coats, a half-litre tin, just context, would do the full size of your front door. So a water stain will rarely be that big. So just paint over with the water base. It's dry in an hour. You get 2 coats on in an hour. 2 coats on in 2 hours, and then you can paint over with your ordinary emulsion paint.
Okay, so that was my next question, because it was Trish that sent in that question. So you can paint over it that quickly then,
absolutely.
2 hours?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, any more questions? 083 30 10 103. This listener in Portlaoise asks, my radiators are warm at the top but cold at the bottom. What's causing that, and how can I fix it? Is that a bleeding issue?
So it would normally be the other way around if it's bleeding. But I'd always do it anyway. Just bleed all your radiators. So if you haven't done it before, just be careful. So get a radiator key, get a rag, turn the valve until you hear air, and then just keep listening, because when the air stops, water will start coming out. And the water that comes out is filthy, black stuff that will stain, talk about paintwork, it'll stain the paintwork. You'll never get it off. You'll have to paint over it. So just by keeping a rag against it. And sometimes people get a bit impatient, so they open the valve, and it's taking what seems like, it's probably a minute. And it's taken forever. So they turn around 3 or 4 times. Now the worry would be they take out the thing completely, and now there's water spewing everywhere, and it's very hard to get back in. But also, turning back that 3 revolutions or 4 revolutions back when there's water spewing everywhere is a difficulty as well. So just turn it about half a turn or 3/4 of a turn, and just be patient and wait for it to come out. Listen to Sally Ann on the radio. Time will pass in a second. It'll seem listening to Sally Ann for 10 minutes would be just like a minute.
Oh, it's all happening today here. I don't know. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. If you have more questions, do please get them into us now. 083 30 10 103, or you can call us on 0818 300 103. The time now, it's 10:30.
Mr. Fix-It with a bed shed Kilbeggan. Quality, choice and value you can't beat. With over 80 beds, headboards and mattresses to suit all budgets. Find the bed shed on Facebook and Instagram.
Welcome back to Midlands Today here. Mr. Fix-It himself, Brian Cloonan, has joined us in studio. More questions coming in about the radiators. It's obviously that time of year when people are just turning on the central heating.
Although incredibly, you don't need it today. It's so warm. It's November.
Yeah, sure. It's not
incredible.
Right. Yeah,
it's not right.
It's not right. Any tips on balancing out heat for radiators upstairs and downstairs? Radiators roasting upstairs but not warm downstairs.
So what I should have said, and I got distracted. So if you bleed the if you bleed the rads and it's not working for you and it's still cold at the bottom, you probably need to get your radiators flushed out.
Okay.
So if you look at a sewer pipe, or look at anything that any pipe work, any solids in the pipework will always deposit at the bottom. So you end up with a lot of sludge. Like in an old house, there can be a lot of sludge. So it's debris. It's often a bit of rust and stuff. Maybe in the small tank in the attic there was flies up there, and there's dead flies now in the system, and a whole build-up of stuff. And that becomes a horrible, horrible sludge. So what they do is they put mains pressure on the system, and they take out all this horrible gunk. So if bleeding the radiator isn't enough, you need to look at that. So the other thing, I suppose, then to change the pressure, what you might do is just try turning off all the rads in the radiators in the area that, say upstairs. If upstairs is
where
working,
it's going well.
Yeah, turn off all of those individually and let all the pressure go to the other rads, and then turn everything back on again and see what happens. And if that doesn't work, call the plumber.
More painting questions. This listener has sent in a couple of pictures, and it's basically a white background with some kind of bubbles on it, and they say, my walls have blisters when I painted it. What's wrong there?
So it could be moisture coming from underneath, and that's usually what it is. Now, there could have been a reaction. See, sometimes it can be as simple as, this is silly now, but there's loads of things that we handle daily that if you had mayonnaise on your hands, okay, and you were doing something and you touched the wall, well, mayonnaise has vinegar in it. Vinegar is an acid. If you paint over an acid, the paint will bubble off.
Okay.
So it can be as simple as that. So really, all walls should be washed down before you're going to paint them. But in this particular case, what I would do is...
It's a kitchen wall now, by the way, and they say they've used Colour Trend Soft Sheen on kitchen walls.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything to do with the paint. It's got to do with what was there. So again, a kitchen, funny enough, there you go.
Yeah.
It can be greasy. It can be all sorts of stuff. You could be baking something. You could be, stirring up something and it splatters on the wall, and you wipe it down thinking you've washed it off. but there's a residue behind that the paint doesn't like. So what I would do is give it a light sanding. I'd probably use a stain block just to be on the safe side and then paint over it.
Okay, so again, it's back to the prep, isn't it?
It's back
all
to the
time
prep.
with
It's always the 3 secrets of painting: prep, prep, prep.
Don't do it yourself.
I know.
Okay, more questions coming in. Text and WhatsApp now 083 30 10 103 or 0818 300 103. This listener in Athlone says, I have creaking floorboards upstairs. How can I stop the noise without lifting the carpet? Is that going back to the joists? Or?
Yeah, so not really without lifting the carpet, no.
Okay.
So normally what happened is you'd be lifting the carpet and screwing down the boards. So they would have been nailed down originally and maybe not enough nails used. So if you use a lot more screws, it will stop the movement on the boards in the first place. So unfortunately, no, without lifting the carpet, it's not an option.
Okay, and could they be putting anything additional like over the floorboards?
Yeah,
or?
so if you're going to lift it, you might as well put down an extra.
Or just change the carpet.
Yeah. No, but if you're going to lift it, put down a roll of underlay felt to help stop that from happening.
Okay, yeah, it's particularly annoying though, I'd say, when you're downstairs.
And it's like all these things. I was wearing shoes a couple of weeks ago, and new shoes, good brand, Clark's, but they were squeaking.
Right.
And I wasn't particularly aware of it, and then someone said it to me. And then, of course, once you hear it,
yeah, you can't unhear it.
You can't unhear it. And I went home and changed them because they were driving me mad. And I was oblivious to it.
Yeah, and
so it's one of those things, once you start hearing those creaks, they start driving you nuts.
Yeah, and you'll hear a lot more now with the central heating coming back on as
Correct.
well. You'll hear a bit more of that.
There's more movement, yeah.
Deirdre has sent in a question on 083 30 10 103. Could you ask Brian, we have a cement area at the back of the house. What can we spray on it as parts of it are greenish? We have a dog running freely.
Okay, so nearly all the algae killers will not have any effect on the dog whatsoever.
Okay.
Once you just keep the dog off while you're doing it and until it's dry. So today is probably a bit wet. So ideally the surface would be fairly dry. This time of the year you won't get it very dry. You won't get it bone dry, but fairly dry. If it remains fine, if it goes out and it looks dry, and like today is perfect, it has to be above 6 degrees on the day you do it. So there's loads of different ones out there. It's a small area, so you don't need to buy a huge amount. So like the Drive Clear, the ActiWash, the Green Slime Remover, there's a whole raft of them out there, and just mix it according to the instructions and put it on, and don't bother washing it off. Most of them work without, the longer you leave it, the better they work. And in fairness, as I always say, God will wash it off for you eventually, so don't be too concerned about that. But ideally, look at the forecast, you want it dry 24 hours after you put it on.
Is there particular jobs that people should be looking to tackle now at this point in the year before it gets much worse?
Yeah, so if you did that now before it gets worse, you've headed the problem off at the pass, and it'll probably get the whole winter, particularly if you put on one of the stronger ones, the Drive Clear, the ActiWash, one of those, put it on and just leave it there. Now, if you wanted a complete transformation, you could use a chlorine-based one, but I wouldn't with the dog or with a cat going to walk on it.
Okay.
And also, it's much more dangerous, and it's much, you have to be so much more careful with it. That's on those, the Drive Clear, the ActiWash, all those, you can spray it on anything. The patio, fences, the PVC fascia soffit, the gutters, anywhere you've green of any sort. So green algae, green moss, liverwort. It'll also do the red algae. It'll also do the green lichen on your roof and so on. So anywhere, it's a relatively benign product. It's not going to harm your pets at all. And it will fairly well transform it with fairly little effort. The only effort is the best way to put it on is with a sprayer, or on a patio like that. If you don't have a sprayer, just make up a bucket load, get a brush or a watering can, put it on, and actually if you scrub it in with a brush, it does an even better job.
Okay, great. Okay, brilliant. Okay, I was asking, is it a good time of year to do particular things? One listener wanting to know about cleaning gutters and downpipes and what's the safest way to do that. That's probably a job for now, isn't it?
That's a job for now. So, well, the job to empty them out would have been in the summer when everything was dry.
Okay.
And then you're just taking out these long lumps of dried in stuff, which is not so bad. At the moment, they're pretty horrible. But yeah, look, if you haven't done it during the summer, clean it out. And you can get a thing called... there's loads of different brands. The Hairy Molly, the other brands just won't come to me at the spur at the moment. The Hedgehog. There's loads of different brands, but they're basically like a big, long bottle brush. They're a 4 metre long bottle brush, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
So it's like a black bottle brush with a stainless steel core going through, which never rusts. And you put this down into the gutter. And what happens is all the rain coming off the roof will go down into the gutter as if the hairy molly isn't there. But no leaves go in, no debris goes in. So if you are in an area where you have a lot of leaves, a lot of high trees, a lot of shedding leaves, the problem is, of course, the gutter fills up, and then what happens is very often you end up with a leak overflowing somewhere and maybe coming into the house, and guess what? Staining the wall, and then you have to use a stain block, and then you have to repaint the wall. So that's a definite preventative. If you've green algae on your fascia, on your soffit, on your gutters, on your downpipes, just spray on one of the biocides, the algicides, the ActiWash, the Dryfly, whatever it is. Just spray that on and just again leave it to work. There's no need to wash it off. It'll all get washed off. It'll more or less disappear in 24 hours. As far as the naked eye can see, it'll disappear, and then eventually the debris will all be washed off in the fullness of time.
Well done, nicely done, Brian. See how we brought that full circle there back to the start of the conversation. Okay.
I was listening, by the way, to I'm going to be listening attentively to the resistance training for the over 60s, and I was smiling on the way in because a while ago I was in the local coffee shop and the girls were chatting, and I knew one of the girls there had left school a couple of years previously, and they were talking about age, and she asked me what age did I think she was. Now I knew she was, late teens, early 20s.
But that was your first mistake.
Exactly. So I
that.
said 28 or 29. To which, naturally, she was highly indignant and she said, well, you must be 60. And I said, well, yeah, actually, I am 60. And then I realised afterwards, as far as she's concerned, 60, 70, 80, they're all the same age. They are all equally ancient in her eyes.
It's only a number.
It's only a number, is right.
Number.
Yeah.
Keep your questions coming in for our fantastic 60-year-old who is a wealth of knowledge. 083 30 10 103 or call us on 0818 300 103. We'll be back with Brian just after this.
Mr. Fix-It with the Bedshed Kilbeggan. Need a new bed or mattress? Our helpful and experienced team will be only too happy to guide you to the best choice for you. Find the Bedshed on Facebook and Instagram.
Brian Cloonan is, of course, with us in studio this morning. Get your questions into us now. 083 30 10 103 or 0818 300 103. Brian, Anne has messaged in to ask, can you paint glass? My back door, the gas is gone between the glass. What would it look like if I painted it, or would it look worse?
The gas has gone between the glass. You struggled a little
Say
bit with that, didn't you?
Say that 3 times fast.
So what's happening, I would imagine here is, so I think it's a gas between them, or else it's a vacuum, one or the other. But if once that happens, you get condensation between the two panes of glass, and it never leaves. It's always there. So I think that's what Anne is concerned about.
Yes.
So if you paint the glass, obviously it will no longer be see-through. But yes, you can. You can give the glass a very fine sanding, which, the way you walk into a pub and the glass is kind of off-white because it has been sandblasted. Mm-hmm. So you'd end up with something a little bit like that. But because you're doing it by hand, it won't look nice and neat like that. But now when you paint it, the paint will stick to it, no problem. But obviously you'll no longer have light coming in through that glass. So the other option would be, sometimes people would convert they convert a room into a bathroom or whatever, and then of course the glass is now see-through and you don't want somebody able to see into the bathroom. So it's ancient, but it still works, and shops like us, hardware shops, would still sell it. Obscure contact. So contact was, people still buy it, funny enough, for school books. It comes in clear, it comes in this obscure.
To cover them.
To cover the books. Okay, yeah. And it comes in colours as well. But a lot of people would buy it where they have a scene where, if they live on a street, or if they live in a housing estate and there's some, they don't want somebody able to see into a room, they'd put on the obscure contact. So that is where you get a fingerprint or design on the glass. But it's just a roll of film that you stick on, but the light will still come in. Okay. So the light in the room is not affected.
So it just turns it into privacy glass, I suppose,
exactly,
really. Okay.
Exactly. And that'd be cheap and cheerful.
Yeah.
And is removable if you don't like it. You spend €3 or €4, you put it on. If you don't like it, you take it off. Whereas taking the paint off is a much bigger job. But so the answer to the question is, can you paint glass? absolutely. But I personally would try the other first because I think it'll work better. It won't make the room as dark.
Yeah, and easier to walk back if you're not 100% on it.
Exactly.
Okay. One listener asking, please tell me again the name of whatever product Brian was talking about that did moss, algae and a whole lot of other things that's not harmful to pets.
So most of the biocides, algicides, are not harmful to pets. The two best value ones I'd recommend would be the Drive Clear or the ActiWash, just because they give you a higher concentration level. In other words, you end up with more end product per litre or per 5 litre that you're buying. But none of those, once it's dry, none of those will affect your pets.
Hilda actually has given us some advice for our listener about the glass with the gas gone, etc. Yes. She says there is also glass and tile paint. You can get it in the art shops. It can be streaky, but you can do like a stained glass effect. It still lets the light through.
All right. Yeah.
Might be worth a punt. But obviously the change to the privacy glass just gives you that option to walk it back if you're not quite sure afterwards. Okay, one question here about a wooden front door. It's sticking after all the rain lately. This listener asks, any tips to fix it without having to replace it, which of course is costly?
Oh no, you don't need to replace it. There's moisture has gotten into the door. So it's just the lightest of light sandings. One of the things we always say to people, when you paint a door, I always have to do this in my head now. So if you look at a door, you have the front of the door and the back of the door, and you paint it. And then you have the edges. So you have the two sides and the top and the bottom. And you will paint the two sides, but people rarely paint the top and the bottom because you don't see it.
You can't see it.
So why would you need to paint that? But moisture gets in there, particularly at the bottom.
Okay.
So once moisture gets into the door, the timber is going to swell. So this is the problem here. So now that doesn't mean that the problem, the swelling is just at the bottom because it travels up through the timber. So what you're doing is get a sheet of newspaper, a magazine page, whatever, put it on into the opening and close the door and see where does it tear the page. You know, if the door is nice and loose, it'll say it's tight at the bottom and tight at the bottom and loose at the top. You'll have a torn page at the bottom. You'll have no torn page at the top. Now you know where you need to sand. That's it. Hopefully it's just at the bottom, the bit that can't be seen. So then what you would do is, it's really a 2-person job or even nearly a 3-person job. And the easiest way to do it would be hold the door open. One person is holding the door. You can hold one of those people and you get a metre of a coarse sandpaper and just pull it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And you'll very quickly sand off the excess at the bottom and then just paint it or varnish it or put something on to stop the moisture from getting in.
Okay, great. I'll get this last one in for this listener. They've sent on a picture. It's a lovely, wood-burning stove that's set on like what looks like granite, but on either side there's like a stone tile surround. Stone around fire. I'd love to change the colour. What kind of paint would you use for that kind of job?
So, how hot does it get? When the stove is roaring hot, can you put your hand on the stone and hold it there? Mm-hmm. So if you can imagine, on most radiators, you could nearly keep your hand on the stone, on the radiator, without getting burnt. Whereas if you put your hand on the stove, you get burnt straight away. So if it's a case that you can keep your hand there without getting hot, I'd probably use one of the self-priming, self-undercoating paints like Super Deck or Rust-Oleum or one of those. Now, they go for the Super Deck because there's no smell. The Rust-Oleum is cellulose-based. If it gets so hot that you can't keep your hand there, you'll have to use a heat-resistant paint. But yes, you can paint it, no problem whatsoever.
Oh, so you can? I didn't think you could do that.
No problem whatsoever. See, paint technology, almost by the year, or certainly every 5 years, it's leapfrogging what's out there. And what was impossible 10 years ago, or what was a big job 10 years ago, is a small job today because the technology has improved so much. Yeah,
and a much nicer option than having to be ripping out this and
Correct.
That as well. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, well, I hope we have answered everyone's questions on 083 30 10 103. If you do have a question and you'd still like to get it into us, we can pass it on to Brian as well and he can address that the next time he is back on studio. But for now, Brian Cloonan, thanks so much for joining us in studio this morning. Mr. Fixed, of course,
Ariane.
answering all of your questions. We are on the way to news at 11 o'clock. When we come back after 11, as Brian flagged, we'll be hearing why resistance training in your 60s is hugely beneficial and why it is never too late to start. That's on the way next after your local news update.